When I was about 5 years old, a man in a long trench coat approached me and told me to protect my energy. Story time. When I was about 5 years old, my parents took me to the big city. I used to live in a very small town in the middle of the mountains, and time to time we would venture to the really big city to visit family members. So I know I was in a big city, and I didn't like big cities. Too many people, too many noises, too much noise. I didn't like to, so I stayed very close to my parents all the time. And they were very overprotective, so they made sure that I stayed close. You know, we got out of the car, and they were taking stuff up to outside of the car and just told me to stay close. When a man in a long leather trench coat approached me, and he leaned over and he told me that I need to protect my energy because my energy could be misused. At that time, I have absolutely no idea what he's talking about. None. I kind of was frozen and just look at him and say, okay. And he just walk away. Then I just heard my mom and dad yelling at me to, come on, what you doing? Just keep going, come. And I just wanted to apologize for misbehaving, saying, oh, I'm sorry that man was talking to me. And they just looked at me and said, what man? There's no man there. Just stop being silly and come. Now, my parents were kind of used to me space out. My mom always said that I'm dreaming. I am daydreaming. I shouldn't be daydreaming that much. So they were kind of used to me spacing out. But at this point, I was like very curious, like, how come you didn't see that man? But my parents told me there was nobody there, even though I'm 54 years old now. And I still can describe that man. I still see that happening. I still can describe every second of that. So I knew it happened. I just was told it didn't happen. So I believe my parents. It wasn't until years later that I was helping my father clean up like a room that we just had for space for stuff that we were not using. And I saw that coat, long leather coat, hanging in between another coats. And I said, that coat reminds me of the coats that man was wearing. My father looked at me confused, and I felt fear in him, which confused me. And he asked me, which man? And then I explained it to him, years ago we went to the town, and that man told me something, that I need to protect myself because people can misuse my energy. And I still didn't understand what he meant, but I was just afraid. My father went, I can feel fear from him. He said you just, you just have a big imagination. Like, don't worry, everything is fine. But what I sensed from him was fear that confused me. It wasn't until years later, I believe so, it was my uncle, that he kind of misspoke in front of me. And he recalled the day that my father told the family about the man he met. And he retold the story that my father told them when he was dating my mom. So it was before I was born, before my brother was born, before they got married. They just started dating. And he had a motorcycle. So he was coming from his home to my mom's. And, at that time, it's still in Slovakia. If you see somebody standing on the side of the road, especially when it's at night, you kind of stop by and ask, hey, are you okay? Like, do you need a ride or something? Even I recall how many times there was a drunk person in a ditch. My father would stand and put it in the car, and people know each other, so it was very normal for people would stop by and ask somebody. He said there was a man in a trench coat and in a hat, not in a top hat. The guy that I met that met me did not have a top hat, so it was not the guy in a long black coat with top hat. But what my father told the family was that he stopped by, asked the man if he needs a ride because he was just by himself on a motorcycle. He can give him a ride. And when he stopped by, the man had a hat but didn't have a face. There was just blackness in the face. And he was just kind of standing there. So my father got spooked and he left. He said, my uncle saying that he was shaking, very, very afraid when he got to mom's place and was very afraid to go home. Now I understood why my father got scared when I told him the story about the man in a long coat. He did ask me when I learned the story if I saw that man ever again, and I told him no. And to this day, I don't recall seeing that man. But when I learned about hypnosis, that incident, that man came to me right away. And even now, at my age right now, with everything that I know, I would not let anybody to hypnotize me. And I am still reluctant using hypnosis. The only time I just started using hypnosis is with past life regression, which Dolores Cannon kind of kicked me into it. But that's another story. So yes, I was warned about, now I know my gifts and my energy, protecting my energy so it would not be misused. And a funny thing is, I just recently learned that CIA released some kind of files, and I'm going to look through them, about studies that was done between that time Czechoslovakia and Russia. So I'm looking into it, but that story stayed with me. Do you have a similar story? Do you have something that it stuck with you from the childhood? Let me know. Bye.